Before we can watch Princess Tilly's journey to the ruins, the scene shifts to the king's city, where we see a few people outside the city walls. These folks appear to be refugees, afflicted by the same curse-like plague spread by the church. Lady Echo feels really sorry for them, because these people are refugees from the eastern region who didn't get the chance to board the ship sailing back to Border Town, and the church didn't even bother to give them medicine and just threw them out to die. Thin Mustache decides to gather everyone who can still move and tells Lady Echo to take them to safety. She quickly uses her magical voice, announcing that she has come to cure them under the command of the Western Region leader, Roland Wimbledon. She assures the desperate crowd that their ship is at the docks, where people have medicine to cure everyone free of charge. Thin Mustache is amazed to see how her voice is reaching everyone's voice, even though she is not even speaking vocally with words. The people quickly perk up at this news and stand up. Even the lady suffering from illness rises, eager to be saved. She promises to go to the Western Region if it means being cured. Thin Mustache flashes a pleasant grin and tells everyone they can bring their families as well. A while later, we see a bunch of water skins containing the medicine. The soldiers quickly tell the gathered refugees to drink the medicine inside the bottles, and they will be cured immediately. Without a second thought, the desperate people grab the water skins and chug down the water. As they do, a soldier preaches that the rumor about witches spreading this plague is total bullcrap circulated by the church, which is meant to make people beg and kneel before the church. He tells them that not only did Roland provide the medicine, but he's not even charging a single copper for it. Everyone's stunned and having a hard time believing it, because this just feels too good to be true. But then, one of the seriously sick women says she's already feeling better after drinking that potion, and the marks on her body have vanished. The crowd goes wild with joy, and cheers fill the air as they celebrate their salvation. The soldier then explains that Roland Wimbledon is busy developing the Western region and needs a bunch of people to help with farms, building houses, and paving roads. He says those who agree to move there will get food and shelter as compensation. He also promises that everyone will get a job suited to their skills, and lets them know they'll be leaving in 3 days, so they should head to the ships if they want to go to the Western region. The crowd bursts into cheers once again, and eagerly says they're ready to work for Prince Roland. Thin Mustache is glad that everything is going smoothly, and what's even more surprising is that Margaret is also helping by arranging ships. Not gonna lie, I'm curious about why she agreed to help and what our boy offered her to make such a greedy merchant lend a hand. Thin Mustache then asks about the wine barrels scattered around. Theo explains that they're used to store Miss Lily's purified water. It's an easier way to get the water into the city since the walls are tightly guarded and shut to prevent mass riots by refugees. He puffs up his chest and proudly reveals that they're using the capital's side doors, which are still open for merchants, and it's all thanks to the links he has with the King's City's guards. Just then, 2 soldiers show up, and Captain Brian quickly asks them what's up. The guard reports that Miss Lightning, who's on scout duty, said someone jumped ship to escape and they're probably a rat hiding in disguise. Well, it looks like this poor rat's escape didn't go too well, and he is now getting grilled by Captain Ironaxe about who he is and who sent him. The guy quickly reveals he's not their enemy. He quickly introduces himself as Hill Fox and claims Theo knows who he is. Well, it seems like it's actually the same guy Theo met before, and back then, he was introduced as a gambler who lost everything in gambling. Right on cue, Theo shows up and fills Ironaxe in, saying that Fox is a newly recruited rat who was supposed to spread information. Theo didn't expect him to infiltrate the masses and risk getting infected, so they're curious why he'd risk his life for some intel. Fox quickly admits he's already figured out that everyone here is working for Roland Wimbledon, not Timothy. That's when Theo decides it might be best to get rid of this guy, since he knows too much and could pose a threat to their plans. However, Fox quickly insists that he's also willing to work with Roland. Ironaxe isn't buying it though. He definitely doesn't want to trust a rat who's already been working for Timothy. But Fox quickly ups the ante, declaring that he's actually an enemy of Timothy. Suddenly, a little bottle falls out of Fox's pocket, and Theo is quite startled to hear that he's actually an enemy of Timothy. Theo bends down to grab the suspicious-looking bottle, and Fox quickly claims it's the church's holy medicine, which he took from the black market for a high price. He then quickly expresses his desire to join Roland's crew, because he also wants Timothy crushed as well. Thin Mustache asks Theo what he thinks about the situation. Theo explains that when he's not sure what's true or not, he usually goes with the safest bet, which here means deciding to kill Fox. Right at that moment, Nightingale joins the scene and tells Theo to leave it to her to figure out whether Fox is lying or not, because she is a living, breathing lie detector. In a few moments, Fox spills everything from the beginning. He clarifies that he didn't go bankrupt from gambling, nor did his wife cheat on him. These are just tall tales. In fact, he used to be part of the Pigeon Hat, a circus group that performed in the capital's inner districts. The group wasn't very large, but they were a tight-knit team, and Fox met his wife during that time. After they got married, They saved enough money to buy a house in the capital. But everything was destroyed when Timothy began his witch hunt. Under his harsh rule, the patrols went nuts looking for suspects, and Fox's wife was captured on flimsy accusations of being a witch. Later, Fox thought he could bribe the prison guards to free his wife, or at least get a chance to see her. But those filthy, greedy bastards just took his money and still wouldn't let him see her. They promised he could pick her up later, but when he finally got the call, she was already a mangled corpse. From then on, Fox swore he'd get justice for his wife. But the guard responsible for her death got off with just 10 lashes, and all Fox got was a measly 3 gold royals as compensation for losing his wife. If that's not rubbing salt in the wound, I don't know what is. So, Fox's sole purpose in life became seeking revenge on Timothy. He rallied support from his friends in the circus group, and since they weren't exactly battle-hardened, they used their skills to infiltrate various underground organizations. They gathered intel on Timothy and spread it to his enemies. While doing this, he also met Theo and kept tabs on him, who was supposedly working for Timothy to get rid of refugees from the city. But Fox eventually discovered that Theo was actually working for Roland. So here he is, still tied to the chair, insisting that he's eager to join Roland if it means taking down Timothy. He's ready to spill all the juicy details he has about Timothy to make it happen. Once the guy is done speaking, Theo turns to Nightingale and asks her to take on the matter. She quickly reassures him that Fox is being truthful, and there's nothing dishonest in what he's saying. However, she's not sure if he'll actually be useful to them. While Theo is still deciding whether to keep Fox around, Fox is amazed by how Prince Roland is letting witches live and saving so many refugees. He wonders if Timothy had been as kind-hearted, his wife might still be alive. Nightingale smiles, seeing that Fox isn't put off by Roland's unusual behavior. So at the end, they decide to let him join them, and quickly untie his hands. Theo tells him to stick with him and help out around the city for now. Theo is back in the same hotel, where he bumps into Black Hammer again. The big guy is thrilled the medicine worked, saying that without it, these 2 fools he's holding would have been dead by now. The little girl thanks Theo for curing the plague, wondering if he's working with the church. Theo keeps his identity under wraps, and claims that the medicine came from higher-ups in the royalty, and the church is just spinning stories about witches causing the plague, so he wants everyone's help here to cure all of the commoners. Black Hammer perks up at this and asks if Theo's client really let them sell the medicine. Our boy Theo confirms it and explains that his client is furious with the church for deceiving the public. He's worried that if the church keeps spreading propaganda and turning all the commoners to their side, they'll end up ruling the whole kingdom. That's why Theo's client, who is our boy Roland of course, wants to cure all the city's commoners. Theo tosses out a pouch of water containing Lily's purified water and tells the rats they can sell it for 10 silver, with 40% of the cut going to them. The guys perk up at the prospect of making some quick cash. Theo explains that he smuggled nearly 5,000 to 6,000 worth of medicine, so if they sell it all, they could make some serious money. He also points out that he knows they might try to sell the medicine at an even higher price. To drive his point home, Theo slashes his dagger across the desk and warns them that his client doesn't forgive those who try to play dirty, so they'd better steer clear of scamming others for their own gain. He also tells them not to sell the stock all at once to avoid scalping, and that it's their problem from now on. Then he asks one last time if they're up for the job. Hammer stays quiet for a moment, then grabs the dagger and confidently says he's all in. After hearing the response, Theo quickly informs him that the medicine will arrive at the inn in 2 days by sunset. The next scene takes us to the church, where people are lined up before a priest. One guy sits down over his knees and informs the priest that his whole family has caught the plague and he desperately needs the holy medicine. He explains that he got ripped off by those black market rats when he tried to buy medicine, and now all he has left to offer is a little egg. The priest takes the egg, but not before giving the guy a stern look. He tells him he'll be punished for not trusting the church and trying to buy medicine from the shady black market. Then the priest orders him to stand up in order to seek forgiveness. The priest tells him that he'll have to devote the rest of his life to the church. The guy quickly agrees, saying he's ready to dedicate his life right away. Suddenly, another guy rushes in and tells the priest there's a report about someone smuggling the sick out of the city. The news comes as a great surprise to the priest. Shortly after, we find a priest grilling this guy Needle Eye, who claims to have even juicier news. The priest promises this man that if his information checks out, he'll be rewarded with the holy medicine for his help. Needle Eye then quickly explains that there are empty ships at the commercial river outside the city specifically for shipping the sick. What's even more blasphemous is that they have a way to cure the demonic plague. He says the soldiers had the sick drink some strange water, which made their black spots quickly vanish. These soldiers from the western region are also offering food and shelter to anyone who moves there. To make things worse, there are witches among these people. The mention of witches rattles the priest to his core, and Needle Eye confirms he even saw one flying through the air. One priest grits his teeth at this revelation. while the other asks how many people are on their side and whether Needle Eye is sure they're mercenaries employed by the merchants. Needle Eye kind of confirms it, saying they weren't wearing any armor, didn't have horses, and were armed only with wooden spears, and claims that there are probably fewer than 100 of them. The priest tosses a bottle of medicine towards Needle Eye, who after seeing his reward coming at him, quickly adds that there are also rumors this whole thing was organized by the ruler of Border Town, who's looking to develop his land. The priest gives Needle Eye props for the info, but before the poor guy can even enjoy his reward, his throat is pierced by a dagger from behind, leaving him writhing in pain, and the attacker is a shady figure in a robe. After Needle Eye is dead, the junior priest asks his senior if he really buys the stuff Needle Eye was saying. The senior priest says he'll need to check it out, but suspects there's some truth to it. He plans to put 2 scouts on the city walls to figure out what's going on. The priest gives the mission to his junior, instructing him that if there are indeed mercenaries and witches at the docks, he'll need to buy up all the medicine the rats are selling around town. He is afraid that if the people from Border Town continue spreading their cure, nobody will bow down to the church anymore. As for the witches, the priest decides to leave that task to a mysterious figure known as Faceless. It turns out Faceless is no ordinary person. When the priest tells him to return to his true form, the old man quickly transforms into a stunningly beautiful woman, radiating the undeniable beauty and grace of a witch. It seems she has a particular fondness for the priest, and assures him she'll take care of her part of the job. Back at the city walls, our party is doing a great job getting all the refugees out. Nightingale lets Lady Echo know that the operation has been a success so far, and everyone should be able to catch the ships by sunset. Lady Echo seems a bit distant. When Nightingale asks what's on her mind, she says she's just in awe. She explains that before she was sold to the capital, she went through a lot of hardships. She thought people in Grey Castle were especially cruel because she came from the deserts, but she's realizing that they're not so different from the people in Iron Sand City. In response, Nightingale reminds her that there are good people too, and points to Roland Wimbledon as a shining example. Sister Echo then asks if Nightingale really thinks the prince can change things. She believes it doesn't matter if people come from the mainland, the deserts, or if they're witches. She just wants everyone to live freely and happily. Nightingale gives her a reassuring smile and says she hopes the prince's strange inventions and weird weapons will make a difference. Lady Echo jokes about how much Nightingale trusts him, but Nightingale just smiles back. Echo shares her own faith in the prince and looks forward to seeing the southern region in peace once again. Meanwhile, Iron Axe is up on the wall. While keeping a close watch upon everyone, he can't help but notices that the rat organization is getting ready to surround them. Theo explains that this was to be expected from the start, as these underground rats are pretty lowlifes, who are not known for keeping secrets to themselves. He's sure they're keeping an eye on them under orders from someone higher up. Iron Axe just shrugs off the concern, saying he doesn't care about any random spies in their camps, but just doesn't want their medicine sales to drop. Theo reassures him that he's keeping a close eye on his crew handling the drug sales, so he won't be around to say goodbye as they head off to the border town. Captain Iron Axe gives a sweet smile and says not to worry. They'll catch up when the prince himself comes to claim the capital. As night settles in, we see that witch again, keeping an eye on the crew. She seizes her chance, lunging at one of the soldiers with a dagger. Before he can react, she slits his throat, leaving him dead on the ground. She then takes her clothes off and disguises herself in the soldier's uniform. As Lightning strolls back into camp from her patrol, Wendy's first question is about the current situation. Lightning reports that Iron Axe has already taken the infantry team out to tackle the rats. Lady Echo hands Lightning some water, and Lily grumbles about not having had a shower in days. All she right now wants is to go back to her house and enjoy the luxury of her bubbly home shower. Lightning almost chokes on her water and can't help but tease Lily for sounding like a spoiled elite, especially since she hates nobles. While the girls are in the middle of their banter, that witch in the guise of a common soldier barges in. She's hoping to blend in without any trouble, but Nightingale cannot be fooled so easily. She quickly appears behind the disguised witch, gun barrel pressed to her head, and demands to know who she really is. The witch tries to keep up her pretense, claiming he is Ford, just in charge of patrol, but Nightingale's not buying her crap, quickly pointing out that she's never seen a man with magic inside him before. Nightingale figures this guy isn't just any man. He's either a witch who sneaked in or a really rare male witch. Either way, she's sure he's not the Ford he claimed to be. With her cover blown, the witch decides to go on the offensive. She lunges at Nightingale with a dagger, but Nightingale dodges easily. The witch then turns her attention to Lily, aiming to stab her. Wendy jumps in front to protect Lily, and that woman swings her dagger right away. Nightingale takes action and fires a shot that hits the witch square in the chest. The witch collapses with the single bullet, and as she falls, she reverts to her original form. As she lies on the ground, taking her last breaths, she's overwhelmed by memories of Priestess Heather, who took her in and gave her the name Afra. The recollection brings tears to her eyes. Meanwhile, everyone rushes to Wendy, checking if she's injured. Wendy assures them that she's completely fine, and that the dagger didn't even touch her. It turns out she was wearing some armor made by our hero, which likely saved her from a serious cut. Meanwhile, Lily is still shaken and on the verge of tears, visibly terrified from the close call. She then lashes out at Wendy, telling her not to rush into danger like that again. Wendy comforts Lily by patting her on the head, explaining that she was just caught up in the moment and jumped in front of the blade to protect her, instead of using her wind magic. While they're chatting and comforting each other, Lightning wonders why the witch attacked them in the first place. It doesn't make sense to her why a fellow witch would turn against them. Nightingale steps in and tells Lightning that this woman isn't like them. This night is the last night for everyone here before heading to the border town. And later that night, the rats tried to launch a major sneak attack. It was anticipated, and in the end, our first army had 1 soldier killed and 4 wounded in the aftermath. The muskets kept firing, and the battle ended without close combat. The rats scattered into the night, and with our party's journey due the next morning, there was no need to pursue them. The 4 wounded soldiers received first aid from Lily, and their bleeding was stopped. They also found the soldier who died at the hands of the witch in a field. He was the soldier who died far from home, so he was given a respectful burial, and everyone expressed deep respect and mourning. Because of that one loss, the First Army's debut battle on foreign soil wasn't a success, but it wasn't a failure either. With heavy hearts, everyone prepares for their journey. Back on the sea, Lady Tilly is finally venturing out on her journey with this traveler. The blonde guy explains that there are countless islands in the bay, and no one has been this close to their border before. The further east they go, the stranger the weather becomes, and the islands stay the same, so he's not sure how peculiar they might get. Princess Tilly asks if he is implying that he never had been there before, despite his reputation as a renowned explorer. Few have dared to cross Inferno Island and continue east, and this blonde is allegedly one of them. The blonde laughs it off, saying those are just exaggerated tall tales he's heard about him many times before. While lighting up his cigar, the blonde explorer explains that brave souls from the bay head east every year. It's tough to discover something new because of violent hurricanes and sudden fogs that make sailing really difficult. Meanwhile, Ash reveals in her thoughts that this great explorer went missing 2 years ago. A lot of people thought he died in an accident, but he was actually at Slumber Island. He made naval maps and set out to find other ruins. Lady Tilly has decided to work with him to explore the ruins, and ever since she is working with him, this guy has never talked about the 2 years he was missing, and Tilly hasn't mentioned it either, even though she likely knows about his past. Meanwhile, Tilly explains that the hurricanes around here are actually quite terrifying. The adventurer agrees, adding that witches are absolutely amazing. He mentions that if it hadn't been for a witch named Molly, they would have been goners. Suddenly Molly's fishing rod gets hooked, and she exclaims that there's a big fish caught on her line. The adventurer is still amazed by how Molly summoned that huge shield yesterday to protect their ship. He notes that his crew has stopped resenting witches because of it. So, in a way, the hurricane turned out to be a blessing. He reveals that he's always thought witches would make the best explorers in the world. Tilly happily states that there's already one witch who's known as the greatest explorer. The adventurer seems to agree, and it sounds like they might be talking about lightning. Meanwhile, Molly hooks another fish, and this one looks even bigger than the last. The guy standing nearby is absolutely stunned by what's about to come out of the water. As soon as Molly turns around, a weird sea monster with thousands of sharp teeth lunges at her, aiming to devour her in one gulp. But Ash is quick to act, diving in with her giant sword and slicing the monster clean in half. She tells everyone to back off, then charges forward with her sword, slashing the remaining monster with lightning speed and killing it in one swift strike. After dealing with the sea monsters, Ash checks in on Molly to make sure she's okay. Molly reassures her that she's fine. Ash then turns to the adventurer, asking about these monstrous sea creatures. The adventurer explains that these monsters are legendary sea devils. They're notorious for disguising themselves as regular fish, just so they can trick the fishermen to pull them aboard. There's a myth that if they eat humans, they grow arms, but it's all just hot air. In reality, they're known as demons. Tilly's eyes widen in shock at the mention of demons. Just then, one of the crew members notices that the fog has started to surround the area. The man, who is known as Thunder by the way, quickly shouts for everyone to lower the sails because they're entering the phantom waters. Well, come to think of it, Lightning's dad is named Thunder too, and he's an adventurer just like her. Seems like we have finally found Lightning's father. Meanwhile, Thunder explains that as they get closer to Phantom Island, the same kind of demons they just hunted are going to pop up in even greater numbers. The fog, rocks, and other creatures make this place feel like a ghostly battlefield, which is why many explorers come here but few find the entrance to the ruins. Luckily, they don't have to worry about any of that right now because Molly's jelly-like pet is guiding them safely. Thunder is once again amazed by how, no matter how chaotic the region gets, the pet always warns them of any danger ahead. Ash then asks if all of these islands are underwater, and Thunder confirms that they are, just like Slumber Island. However, the tide rises and falls much faster here, about once every half a month, and the speed is incredible. It's like there's a huge hole at the bottom that's sucking up all the nearby water. Thunder thinks the whole bay's wave activity is tied to this place. If they're lucky, they might see the main island popping up from the water. Princess Tilly asks why they don't just wait until the tide's all the way down, so they won't have to worry about hitting any rocks while sailing. Thunder replies that they can't wait because, when the tide goes out, they won't be able to see the Crimson Spectre River, which is the only way to get to the ruins. He points out a strange red hue in the water, and even the ladies are curious about it. Thunder explains that these are cardinal scale fish, unique to the Phantom Islands, and they'll soon see the Crimson Spectre River in its full glory. Princess Tilly lights up when she sees a huge swarm of fish. She finally gets it. The Crimson Spectre River isn't a real river at all, but just a bunch of cardinal scale fish swimming together. It makes it look like there's a crimson river below. Tilly asks why this happens. Thunder explains that it's because of the main island. Apparently, the island is shaped like a pyramid with a big hollow space inside. The fish lay their eggs there, and when the tide drops and the island starts to show up, the fish, sensing the change, go nuts and rush out. As long as they stick to the Crimson Spectre River, they'll make it to their destination. After sailing along the Crimson River for a while, the majestic Phantom Island finally comes into view, leaving everyone in awe. One of the crew guys quickly ties up the boat to a boulder. As everyone hops out, Princess Tilly asks if he's the one who set up the posts for parking the ships. Thunder explains that the posts were already here when he first found the place, and they were probably put up by whoever built the ruins. Lady Ash then asks where the ruins are, and Thunder says they're right above them, so they'll need to head up to reach them. As they walk through the spooky place, Thunder warns everyone that there are booby traps meant to keep looters out. But since the traps have been submerged for so long, he guesses they might not work anymore. The only issue is they have a long hike ahead, so they need to be careful not to run out of stamina. Princess Tilly seems pretty creeped out by the eerie pathway. Seems like Tilly isn't a fan of the dark. But luckily, Lady Ash has always had her back and is ready to guide her through the shadows once again. After crossing the narrow pathway, they finally reach a door. When they open it and step inside, they get their first look at the library from within. As Tilly starts exploring, Ash quickly tells her to stop, warning that it might be dangerous. But Thunder reassures them, saying they don't need to worry because he and his team have already explored this place before. He points out that there's nothing much in here except some stone tables and chairs, because they've already collected all the magic stones, which were scattered all over the floor, about 30 in total. Plus, other explorers have been through here too, so he's pretty sure the place has been cleaned out. But it looks like Tilly isn't giving up. She spots something secret on the wall and starts ripping it off. To everyone's amazement, she uncovers a huge magic stone embedded in the wall. Ash quickly decides to pull it out, but Lily tells him not to. Instead, she approaches the crystal, and crimson magic energy begins to radiate from it. As the energy intensifies, red energy starts bursting out of the crystal. That's when Thunder realizes that Tilly might be trying to unlock something that only witches can activate. The other crew members are completely clueless about what's happening, and before shit takes turn for the worst, Lady Ash steps in, grabs Tilly like a toddler, and starts running out of the mess. At the same time, a staircase suddenly drops down to the ground from above, supported by some sturdy chains. Thunder's mind is hit by a bolt out of the blue as he sees the staircase before his eyes, probably leading to a secret room. Everyone quickly ascends the stairs, and when they reach the top, Princess Tilly finds another stone embedded in the wall, and this one looks like an ice crystal you will find in the Everwinter Kingdom. Thunder is also amazed and points out that a stone this size could be worth a lot on the market. Tilly assures him that he'll get his share of the loot, just as they agreed. After walking around a bit more, they realize this new place is an abandoned living space. There are some books here too, but even Tilly, who's usually pretty sharp, has trouble reading them because the language is unfamiliar. She decides to take the whole treasure trove of knowledge with her, as they had planned. Thunder then checks out the telescope, but all he sees is pitch black. It's probably because it's broken. Princess Tilly calls Ash over to help move a heavy bronze plate. When Ash pushes it aside, they discover another stone underneath. Tilly immediately reaches out to it, and the stone reacts by glowing with a thick crimson light. Princess tells her friend that the stone is continuously drawing in her magic, and quickly Ash tells her to step back. But the princess reveals that it's already too late, and insists she just needs a little more time to finish the process. Things take a turn for the worse as the ground starts shaking, and Thunder begins coughing badly. His eyes fall on the telescope again, and out of curiosity, he makes a bad mistake of looking through it, which leaves him absolutely boggled when he sees a huge door that seems to be connected to the depths of hell itself. Back in the border town, we see the prince holding a letter sent by his sister and delivered by our little pigeon girl. In the letter, Princess Tilly writes that since his brother is also helping the witches, it's clear that the church has become their enemy. She reveals that she's a witch too, which might not surprise him since it's the only reason the other witches trust her. In a nutshell, she's glad that he's earned the witches' trust with his kind heart, instead of treating them like tools, unlike those nobles. She's also excited about all the inventions he's made. As a gesture of goodwill and to build a strong relationship between both parties against the church, she's included a list of supportive witches in her letter. He can choose those he needs the most and have Maggie let her know. She also warns him she won't be sending more than 5 witches, so he'd better sort out a good transportation plan. The church is greedy, and will eventually try to take over all 4 kingdoms, so she hopes he's ready to fight them when the time comes. She'll also give full support to help push back against the church and make a world where witches aren't discriminated against. With that sweet note, that's how the letter wraps up. The prince thanks the pigeon girl for delivering the letter and tells her that lightning has already gone to the king's city with the ships and should be back in a few days. In the meantime, she can either hang out with Nana or Leaf if she wants to play, or she can take a bath and get some rest. Just as he's getting back to his work, he's jolted by a commotion outside. He's freaking out, hoping his territory isn't under attack. But when he looks outside, he sees the chemistry lab is on fire. The prince rushes to the lab, and when he gets there, the lab assistant begs him to save their teacher, who's really hurt and might not make it. Roland calms everyone down, saying he's already sent someone to help and they'll be here in a few minutes. In the meantime, he wants to check on the teacher. The old alchemist's face is badly beaten up, and both Knight Carter and the prince have a hard time swallowing their shock when they realize his injuries are from the acid released by the explosion. The doctor says they've already done some first aid and stopped the bleeding, but she's worried his injuries might be beyond help. Not wasting any time, the prince quickly tells his guard Sean to bring Nana in as soon as possible, and Sean responds immediately. The prince decides to check out the scene with Carter and reminds the guard again to bring Nana back quickly. They walk into the lab, and it's a total disaster. The prince tells Carter not to touch anything unless he's wearing anti-corrosion gloves. The prince notices a bottle nearby and finds it odd that it's there. He picks it up and realizes it looks like a bottle of spirit from the village market, with less than half left. He wonders if this mad alchemist might actually be a booze-loving old coot, just like our Rick Sanchez. Just then, the soldier arrives and announces that Nana has arrived. Without wasting any time, the prince directs Nana to tend to the alchemist's injuries. Nana confidently declares that small wounds like these are no problem for her. She activates her abilities, and the alchemist's face begins to heal. The skin on his fingers, which had been severely damaged, starts to recover and come together. It's pretty surprising that Nana is actually healing the alchemist's missing fingers, especially since she wasn't able to do this before. Even the soldier is a bit puzzled because there were 3 fingers missing before, but now everything is healed up. The prince asks Nana since when she's been able to do this. In response, the girl explains that she discovered this ability about a week ago. She was experimenting with chickens and realized she didn't need the severed limbs to patch them up once again with body. If she focused enough magic, the lost limbs would slowly grow back by themselves. She proudly mentions that she can pull up this miracle thanks to what the prince taught her in class about the human body being composed of cells. Injuries or amputated limbs are like lost cells, and since magic can fix these losses, she was sure that it should work for amputated limbs too. It's a bit mana-draining task, but growing back a finger is manageable, while regenerating an entire arm is more challenging. Once the alchemist is fully healed, he opens his eyes and jolts awake. He quickly reports that he has finally created what the prince assigned him to make. Curious, the prince asks if he's talking about mercury fulminate. The alchemist confirms with a frantic yes. He explains that the missing catalyst turned out to be alcohol. At first, he tried dozens of different ingredients, but none of them worked. After this streak of bad luck, he bought some alcohol to lift his spirits, and remembered from the chemistry book that alcohol is an organic product and an important ingredient for some reactions. He extracted the alcohol from the spirit and conducted a new test, which surprisingly succeeded on the 6th try. He rambles on about some scientific details that aren't crucial right now. In a nutshell, while experimenting with alcohol, he accidentally had a blast, not the fun kind, but a pretty brutal one. Prince is pretty happy for the discovery, but he is also pretty sad and tells the alchemist to don't pull these kind of risky stunts for the next time, because he is not Rick. The prince tells the old alchemist that if it weren't for Nana, he'd be dead by now. The alchemist's eyes light up in amazement, and he asks if witches can heal wounds caused by experimenting. When he hears the answer, he goes completely wild with joy, excited that he can now experiment without worrying about dying. The prince and Nana are a bit lost on how to handle the frenzied old man. But then, Roland's mind starts racing about their successful experiment, which leaves him grinning from ear to ear, because he's got a great idea for making a bullet cartridge's primer, all thanks to the mercury fulminate discovery. But before he can dive into his exciting experiments, the prince has some boring ruler duties to handle, and he's not too thrilled about it. Just when the prince was hoping for some free time to experiment, a letter arrives from Longsong Fortress about a plague hitting the entire fortress. He also has to check in on Anna and the smith's shop. After finally managing to find some time, he sits down to respond to his sister. Meanwhile, the ships from the king's city have finally arrived. In his letter, the prince writes that he's thrilled about their alliance and is determined to destroy the church at all costs. He promises to expand his territory to allow witches to live freely, and is excited about the new witches arriving next month. He's also mapped out a safe route from the fjords to the border town to avoid the church and ensure a secure journey for the witches. He assures his sister that he'll teach the witches the basics once they arrive at the border town, and every witch who evolves will boost their chances of defeating the church. Lastly, he includes the names of the 5 witches he's picked, and hopes to see them soon. The first is Lotus, with earth formation powers. The second is Kande, specializing in state preservation. The third is Evelyn, with alcohol transmutation. The fourth is Honey, a beast handler. And the fifth is Sylvie, known as the Eye of Magic. Once he finishes the letter, he tells Nightingale to get some rest, as everyone is exhausted from the trip to Longsong Fortress to fight the plague. It seems Nightingale is still troubled by something, so the prince asks if it's about the witch she killed in the king's city. Nightingale admits that she didn't want to kill her, but the witch was radiating such intense malice that she knew the only way to stop her was to take her life. The prince reassures her, saying that shit happens, and it's not her fault. He explains that since she was raised by the church, she likely saw everyone as traitors, and changing that mindset would be extremely difficult without years of interaction. Not only that, he also gives her credit for saving Wendy's life. Nightingale nods and acknowledges that she's done her best to save her other sisters, and that's what matters to her. Seeing her resolve, the prince is fascinated that she's moved past it instead of dwelling on it. Then Nightingale tries to ask a question, and the prince asks what it is. She asks if he's been doing anything with Anna while everyone was away in the king's city. The question catches the prince off guard, and he meekly asks what she's implying. He explains that he's been busy with the refugees and hasn't had much time alone with Anna, so he hasn't been clapping with her. It seems he forgot that Nightingale can see through lies, and she isn't shy about pointing that out. Then, in a surprising move, she kisses him deeply. After their intense lip lock, she says that if the prince wants to be with Anna, she's okay with it. All she wants is to stay by his side. The prince, completely embarrassed, blushes and smiles faintly. With those final words, Nightingale begins to dissolve into her fog, leaving the prince alone. The scene shifts to Anna, who's busy prepping some mushrooms. As she's walking around, Nightingale suddenly pops up behind her. Anna offers the mushrooms to Nightingale and explains she's making snacks for the prince. Maggie picked these bird-kiss mushrooms from the misty forest today, and they're super fresh. Since the prince has been working so hard lately, she thought some snacks would be a nice treat. Anna asks if Nightingale wants to try some once she's done. Nightingale asks if Anna can show her how to make them, and Anna's all too happy to teach her. The two ladies get into their cooking groove. Anna places the mushrooms on a plate after cleaning them, with some dip sauce to bring out their flavor. She grills them until they turn a golden color, and they both enjoy their cooking time together. While they're cooking, Anna asks her senior if she's missed the prince. Nightingale goes silent and looks pretty embarrassed. Anna reassures her that she's not the only one who missed him, because everyone who went to the king's city felt the same way. Noticing Nightingale's unusual behavior, the junior asks what's wrong. Nightingale just says it's nothing but admits that she missed him too. Anna then points out that if she were in Nightingale's place, she'd be dying to reunite with the prince. Nightingale gets a bit somber hearing this, but then Anna snaps her back to the moment, reminding her that the mushrooms are burning. Once they're done, Nightingale takes a bite and finds them delicious. Anna can't stop praising how amazing these mushrooms are when cooked just right. After finishing up, Anna brings a plate of perfectly roasted mushrooms to the prince. She mentions that Nightingale helped with the cooking but felt a bit awkward, so she didn't come along. The prince's mind flashes back to the kiss with Nightingale, and he's momentarily freaked out. Trying to focus, he grabs a mushroom, still thinking about that kiss, and takes a bite. Instantly, there's an explosion of flavor in his mouth. He goes totally nuts, like he's in a Food Wars anime. The mushrooms are perfectly salted and have a soft texture that takes the taste to the next level. The prince asks if there are a lot more of these mushrooms. Anna says they can harvest more since Maggie only made one trip and brought back a big bag. He mentions wanting to cook some veggies too since he's getting tired of meat. He grabs another mushroom, and as soon as he takes a bite, his face goes pale. He's hit with an overwhelming rush of salt and tears start flowing involuntarily from the saltiness. Anna charmingly explains that this batch was made by Nightingale, who really paid attention to every step. The prince can tell these mushrooms are from Nightingale, especially because they're a bit clumsy but endearing. He reflects on how he's spent most of his life working on blueprints and never really had a chance to enjoy simple things like this, making him unsure how to respond to their feelings. He puts the plate back on the table, and Anna asks if he'd like to have some more mushrooms another day. He assures her he definitely will, and they were absolutely delicious. A few days later, it's the day of the award ceremony in Border Town, where people will be honored for their significant contributions. The prince reflects on the achievements they've made, like fighting demons, taking on Longsong Fortress, and everything else. He acknowledges that these accomplishments were all thanks to the efforts of everyone involved. These aren't just elites or artists, but ordinary people who made a huge difference. As a token of appreciation, everyone will receive a generous reward, a special medal designed by the prince himself, along with 100 golden royals and 5 acres of land. The crowd bursts into cheers at the prospect of rewards, while the prince kicks off the ceremony by inviting Iron Axe, the First Army's commander, to the stage. As Sister Echo sings a beautiful song to add a special touch to the ceremony, Iron Axe seems pretty anxious in front of the whole crowd. While the prince praises Iron Axe for his successful missions, like escorting people from the king's city and other heroic acts, Iron Axe is visibly nervous. But as the medal is placed over his chest, the crowd erupts in applause and cheers once more for their commander. While barely keeping his stage fright under control, Iron Axe gives a final salute, kneeling before the prince and nervously banging his head against the floor, thanking the prince for the recognition and rewards he feels he doesn't deserve. As he walks off, Knight Carter and the old advisor notice the genuine happiness shining on Iron Axe's face. The next person called up is Kyle Sichi, the renowned mad scientist who traveled all the way from Redwater City. Everyone is surprised that someone of his stature has come to Border Town after leaving the Redwater Alchemy Center. Prince Roland explains that while Sichi didn't participate in combat, his continuous improvements in firearms played a crucial role in their victories. He also takes a moment to flex the chemistry laboratory flyer, mentioning that they're recruiting people who have completed elementary education. The old man seems pretty annoyed that he was pulled from the lab for this, but the prince reassures him that it's a great chance to get more help for the lab. Once it expands, they'll have a bigger crew called Chemistry 201. The old man's mood brightens, and he starts bowing his head in gratitude. Next up is Nana, who's being rewarded for her healing work. As she steps onto the stage, the crowd starts singing her praises. Everyone thanks her for the times she's healed them, and it completely melts Nana's heart. Overwhelmed by emotion, she reflects on all the hard work she's put in and comes close to tears, realizing she's finally being acknowledged. The prince tells her to calm down and just respond to everyone's enthusiasm. She wipes her tears, stands tall on the stage, and thanks everyone for their generous praise. Once the ceremony wraps up, the prince looks completely worn out from all the speeches and activities. Just when he's about to sink into some well-deserved rest, Nana shows up, puts a finger to his lips, and shushes him. Startled, the prince follows her into his office, where he sees all the witches lined up in the hallway. Lady Scroll steps forward, offering her respects and praising him for his incredible hard work. She struggles to find the right words to express her gratitude. The prince, a bit nervous, listens as the witches explain they've finally found the holy mountain they were searching for. As long as he doesn't send them away, they're more than happy to stay and work with him. The prince shrugs off their flattery, telling them that all he's achieved is thanks to their support, so they don't need to feel indebted. Wendy then steps in, announcing that everyone should head to the dining hall, and the prince will join them soon after changing his clothes. Once the crowd has dispersed, Sister Scroll pulls the prince aside, reminding him that he's been burning the candle at both ends. She notices how tired he looks and suggests he needs to take better care of himself. The prince brushes it off, insisting he's perfectly fine, but his tired eyes give him away. Meanwhile, the witches walking down the corridor are buzzing with excitement about the feast ahead. They're all curious about what delicious offerings await them at the dining table. Back in his quarters, Anna is still with the prince. She thanks him personally, her words failing to capture the depth of her gratitude. The prince, now starting to change into more comfortable attire, casually asks why she's so determined to stay in Border Town. Anna, with a touch of shyness, admits she doesn't have a specific reason, but makes it clear that she'll follow him wherever he goes. She places her head against his chest, seeking comfort and reassurance. While the prince and Nana are getting all emotional, that church guy, whom I forget the name of, stands outside the door, looking forward to discussing some bridge blueprints with the prince. But after peeking through the gate, realizes it's not the best time to interrupt and decides to figure it out on his own. Meanwhile, in the city outskirts at Grey Castle Capital, we catch up with Theo. Fox has brought his circus crew, and he introduces the first guy as a magician who's been undercover in Dreamwater, gathering juicy intel during the naval port barricade. The magician reports that he entered Dreamwater pretending to be an amnesiac, but most people either died or fled. Even the leader, Tanis, was executed by the Judgment Army, and everyone was scrambling to fill the power vacuum. The mention of the Judgment Army grabs Theo's attention. He remembers that this is the church's secret weapon and takes note of the significance. The magician confirms Theo's suspicions. He adds that Tanis's attempt to seize the port failed spectacularly. After retreating to the Eastern District, they were ambushed by the Skeleton Fingers, leaving them with just about 10 people. In a desperate bid to find the church, Tanis and a few of his subordinates set off, but only 2 or 3 of them made it back. They reported that Tanis had a heated argument with the bishop and ended up impaled by the Judgment Army. Theo connects the dots and realizes that Tanis's downfall was likely due to being cut off from church support. The church's refusal to assist him led to his demise. Dreamwater is in serious trouble, and Theo can see how the pieces are falling into place. Man, all this high-stakes political stuff between the kingdoms is a lot to handle, but honestly, who cares? What really matters is watching Roland wipe the floor with everyone. Theo steps in and announces that he serves under Roland Wimbledon and is in charge of gathering reports for him across the kingdom. With his voice raised, he asks if anyone's interested in working for Prince Roland. The whole circus crew gets fired up and makes it clear they're in as long as Timothy is brought to justice. Theo tells them they'll meet once a week at this time and place, and if anyone has urgent reports, they should leave a pot of purple flowers at the door. They'll knock 3 times long, then 2 short. Everyone agrees, and Theo reminds them that a good informant keeps their identity hidden, so they need to keep a low profile. He tells them to cooperate, and they'll make sure Timothy goes down. Theo asks if anyone has anything to add. That's when Fox chimes in, saying Timothy is already on his way back from the eastern region. He shares rumors from the Black Mallet that Timothy seems to be recruiting a lot of rats into his army. The promise is that these rats can become free citizens if they join, and some members of the Skeleton Fingers have gone to the capital to check it out, and it looks like it's legit. Theo quickly realizes that rats can't be real soldiers, so Timothy is probably planning to use those church pills to make them fight, just like they did before. Theo tells everyone to keep a close eye on the rats and report any updates. This will be their first task. The next scene takes us back to the border town, where we see all the refugees lying down, and the person on the counter is taking all the information about each person, and according to their skill set, they are being assigned to a job. A refugee then comes in front of the desk, saying he's illiterate but a skilled woodworker. The attendant starts asking him the usual questions about the job, and the guy answers confidently but nervously. So the receptionist eventually hands him a form to fill out. Just then, Old Man Barov comes from behind, and with his eyes cold as ice, he asks the receptionist why they're doing such a sloppy job. Then, Barov turns to the alleged woodworker and tells him to show his hands. The man reluctantly holds them out. Barov points out that if this guy was a real woodworker, his hands wouldn't be so rough. They should be shiny and tough from handling wood, and stained black from drawing outlines, which is hard to wash off. Plus, the guy keeps avoiding eye contact, which is a dead giveaway that he's faking it. Most people act like that when they're trying to remember something they never actually experienced. The alleged woodworker starts to panic after being exposed. Faced with the punishment of either being sent to the mines or banished from the western region, Barov asks him one last time if he can confirm his story. The man's face goes pale as he realizes the gravity of his situation, and quickly starts banging his head against the floor, confessing that he learned everything by watching his neighbor. The guards take the faker away, and the receptionist, amazed by Barov's insight, comments on his impressive knowledge of woodworking. Barov dismisses the praise, explaining that he picked up these skills during a recruitment drive in the months of demons. Barov advises the receptionist to pay close attention to individuals when they're answering questions. Only those who answer confidently and accurately deserve to be personally evaluated by the prince. He also emphasizes discouraging others from lying by warning them about the severe punishments. Back in the office, Barov reports to the prince that each refugee is expensive, and if they don't work in border town for at least a decade, they won't offset the expense it took to bring them here. The prince reveals his plans, acknowledging that it took 3 days to process the 6,000 refugees. Currently, housing in the town is tight, so he will prioritize the 1,500 skilled artisans first. The other refugees without skills will have to live outside the walls for another 2 or 3 months. The prince instructs Barov to accommodate all the artisans, regardless of whether they are married or not, ensuring they at least get a room. Barov asks what they should do with the spare houses after accommodating the artisans. The prince replies that they should rent them out, giving the refugees a reason to work hard and save money to either buy the house or continue renting it. Prince then asks how many people have left since the ceremony where they introduced the witches to everyone. The old man reports that 0 native villagers and only 6 farm workers have left. Well, It seems like it's a win for our prince, noting that his plan of establishing the theater has convinced many people to accept the witches. However, the old man adds that 110 refugees have left because of their fear of witches, even though they were treated by these very witches. The old man gets all worked up and suggests executing all of them for not showing faith in their prince and to prevent them from returning to the church. But the prince shakes his head, pointing out that the real hardcore church followers were probably among those 300 refugees who stuck around in the capital, even with the plague. They're too stubborn to change their views on witches. All they wanted was to leave, and he is not about to start executing people just because their beliefs are outdated. The scene shifts to the gathered crowd, where the prince unveils an unexpected innovation, which is a bicycle. The core members of the castle look at the strange two-wheeled contraption with curiosity. Knight Carter raises an eyebrow and remarks that balancing on those wheels seems tricky, and questions how it could ever replace horses. The prince just casually hops onto the bicycle and demonstrates how it works. As he pedals around, he enthusiastically explains that he plans to mass-produce these bikes. He's even called in Sister Soraya to sketch out riding positions so they can teach the townspeople. His goal is to make this new mode of transport accessible to everyone, promising that even common folk will get a taste of this luxury, and it'll cost just a couple of royals. The prince's excitement is contagious, and he's clearly eager to see the bicycles become a common sight in Border Town. Shortly after, Knight Carter decides to give the bicycle a spin himself. He's completely impressed by the sleek design and rides it around with a big grin, asking Sister Soraya if she did the drawing for his riding position. She nods proudly, and Carter's eyes widen when he sees the detailed and handsome painting of himself. As everyone enjoys their time with the new invention, Prince Roland watches with a satisfied smile. He then turns his attention back to alchemist Kyle, ready to dive into their next big project. The prince explains that he's going to need a lot more acid than the lab can currently produce. To solve this, he plans to design a chemical system that will churn out acid efficiently and in large quantities. Kyle looks puzzled, never having heard of such a system before. Roland explains that it will involve multiple reaction mechanisms, with the product flowing continuously as long as they keep feeding it the basic ingredients. Kyle's intrigued but admits it's new territory for him. He's up for the challenge and is determined to make it work. Roland also mentions his plans to expand to 3 more labs by the Redwater River next month and bring in qualified staff to keep things running smoothly. Outside, the old man takes a tumble as he tries out the bicycle for the first time. He dusts himself off, sighing and muttering about how he's getting too old for this kind of thing. Meanwhile, Prince Roland is deep in thought, mulling over the advancements in weaponry thanks to their recent breakthroughs. With the new mercuric fulminate in play, he needs large quantities of fuming nitric acid. Since his current labs can't meet the demand, he's considering asking Sister Lucia for help. Because the only way to win these upcoming wars against the church, he will need more than a few cannons and firearms. As he's lost in these thoughts, he reaches for some dried fish to snack on. Before he can even get a bite, Nightingale appears and mischievously stuffs a piece of fried fish into his mouth. Her gesture is both unexpected and warmly received, pulling him out of his deep contemplation. The scene cuts to outside where Prince introduces himself to these little kids and congratulates them for completing their basic education and becoming the town's first graduates. The kids are ecstatic to be speaking directly with the prince, and their excitement is off the charts. He praises Karl von Bate for his significant role in their education and announces that everyone will receive a generous reward based on their performance, regardless of their career choice. The kids cheer and celebrate, thrilled at the prospect of a bright future, and start dreaming about their new salaries and the bicycles they'll soon be able to ride. They excitedly discuss applying for positions at the city hall, envisioning a better life ahead. The prince then decides to distribute the degrees, instructing everyone to come forward when their name is called. A girl playfully pushes her friend to take his degree first. The boy reluctantly steps forward, and the prince hands him his degree, congratulating him on graduating. Feeling a surge of confidence, the boy expresses his eagerness to sign up for the chemistry laboratory and follow in the footsteps of Kyle Sichi. Meanwhile, back in the Holy City, the archbishops are in a heated discussion about Roland. Priest Main is stunned to learn that the plague the church spread was caused by microscopic demons specifically bred to be invisible. He has no idea how Roland managed to cure it, suspecting he might be using witch's magic instead of the holy medicine. They also discuss the long-range crossbows that Roland's forces have, which shoot relentlessly. Priest Main recalls Priest Tylo mentioning these crossbows before, as he is stationed at Longsong Fortress. This revelation also sheds light on why Duke Ryan was defeated by the commoners from Border Town. The church leaders are both baffled and concerned about Roland's growing influence and capabilities. Another old man in the church is absolutely shocked to learn that their witch, known as Faceless, has been killed. He is certain that Heather will be furious when she returns from the Everwinter capital, because pure witches are extremely rare and very expensive to raise. Scratch that, a pure witch is even more valuable than the Judgment Army. The old man goes absolutely mad upon hearing that Timothy's soldiers ambushed the Longsong Fortress Church and killed the head priest of that place. If you can't recall, this happened when Timothy sent those soldiers to attack Border Town after making them take those church pills. Priest Main quickly realizes that Timothy just wanted to steal those pills stashed in the church. However, he still can't believe the audacity of Timothy to kill the head of the church. But it is true, as I can remember. Timothy indeed stole those 2,000 pills and fed them to his army of common people to attack Border Town. After mulling over it, Priest Main quickly understands that Prince Roland is actually planning to acquire this group of refugees as cheap labor. He can arrange for his witches to cure them and ship them to the western region. The old man agrees, saying if they were not fighting Wolfheart right now, the church would put a stop to Roland immediately. And most of all, the witches in the western regions deserve to be swept clean. But Priest Main tells his old fellow to read this letter before getting riled up. The old man is absolutely blown away to realize that a large number of witches have appeared at the bay, and they have destroyed all the current churches. The priests, still in the dark about Princess Tilly's involvement, are puzzled if the witches are migrating from the mainland to the sea. But Priest Main just shrugs them off, saying that they are far away in the ocean and shouldn't affect their grand plans. The current mission of the church is to acquire more land and labor to expand their Judgment Army. It seems like these priests have finally recognized this once dumb and goofy fourth prince as the greatest threat to the church. Priest Main has decided to lead 100 Judgment Army soldiers and pure witches to permanently wipe out the western region, and decides to deal with the witches at the sea later. The old man is shocked at the idea of Main going himself, especially since the battle at Wolfheart is still ongoing, and Heather has not returned from Everwinter. But, as if on cue, a soldier arrives with urgent news from Heather. Apparently, a huge fleet has docked at Everwinter, and many enemies are attacking the capital. When the message was sent, 2 city gates had already been lost. Archbishop Heather is currently trying to defend as much as she can, but there are too many enemies, and they are using berserker pills. All the ships are flying the same black flag, the Black Sail Fleet of Garcia Wimbledon. The scene transitions to the castle of Everwinter, where Garcia has taken control and captured Heather. Garcia, standing in the Grand Castle, tells Heather to start praying to her god before she begins her gruesome work. She plans to cut off Heather's fingers and limbs one by one to make her feel the pain and helplessness that the people of Clearwater have suffered. Heather, however, remains steadfast, showing no hint of fear or apprehension. She defiantly asks Garcia if she plans to curse herself with the church's wrath, or if she intends to drift at sea forever without ever docking. Garcia does not seem to like this nonsense talk and simply snaps her fingers. Right on cue, her goons pin Heather to the ground and hold her hand out. They proceed to cut off her fingers with the cold efficiency of slicing cucumbers. As the pain begins to overwhelm Heather, her face twists with agony. Despite the relentless torment, her eyes well up with tears, but she remains determined not to give in. Garcia's soldiers continue their gruesome task, chopping off her remaining fingers, but Heather's resolve seems unshaken even as her body trembles from the pain. Chief Kabbalah of the Sandstone clan looks at Garcia and asks if this is really necessary, since suffering is usually only needed for intimidation or interrogation. Garcia, clearly annoyed, responds with a sharp question about whether Chief Kabbalah even understands how the church tortures witches. Then Heather's chuckle breaks through, quickly escalating into maniacal laughter. She tells them that they clearly don't grasp the church's power or the importance of its work. Heather makes it clear that Garcia has stuck her hand into a lion's jaws and that the church's enemies will be obliterated. But Garcia just laughs it off and says she'll be more than happy to wait for that day to come. The scene opens with Anna happily digging into her ice cream. Her enthusiasm is sweet as the treat she's savoring. The prince couldn't help but feel creeped out, convinced that no matter what era they came from, girls always enjoyed ice cream. It turns out the prince had come up with a simple recipe using just sugar, water, yolks, butter, and milk to make the ice cream. Perfect timing, as the other girls soon joined the scene. Maggie walks in with her hair playfully tousled by leaves, and the prince jokes that they must have been looting bird nests again. He pulls out a letter and mentions that summer begins tomorrow, and before she prepares to head back to the bay, he asks Maggie to deliver the letter to Tilly. Maggie accepts the letter confidently. Meanwhile, Lightning remembers that with the end of the month approaching, Maggie will be leaving the palace soon. The prince then gives Lightning a mission, revealing that the map she's looking at is one she drew herself. He asks if she remembers the shallow beach by the mountains. Lightning quickly points to the spot on the map. The prince tells her to take Maggie and fly out there, plant 2 flags at the spot where the beach meets the mountains, and mark it on the map. Turning to Maggie, he explains that if Tilly agrees to send the witches, Maggie will need to guide the ship to this spot, where everyone from Border Town will welcome them with hot air balloons. Lightning perks up with happiness as she realizes that more witches are apparently going to be joining Border Town soon. The prince nods confidently, saying he believes in his sister and that she will eventually join him. Shortly after, we see the balloons soaring through the air. All the girls are absolutely amazed to see that they're actually flying. The prince has named the balloon the Overlook, and Anna gives all the credit to Soraya for helping paint it. The prince agrees, saying the paint's stickiness is exceptional because it needs to adhere closely to the base layer to support such a massive balloon. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure and tension. The prince quickly starts imagining that, since he has acquired DC motors, he can use electrolyzed water to create hydrogen gas. It won't be long before he can build a famous Zeppelin airship. As long as he can find lightweight materials for the frame, a monster like this could soar thousands of meters above the ground. Although the feasibility of dropping bombs from such heights is questionable, it's thrilling to think about invading the church's holy city by land, sea, and air combined. The girls notice the prince smiling, and Lily points out that he's probably excited about the prospect of new witches. The prince keeps grinning, clearly enjoying the excitement of new possibilities. Wendy, meanwhile, is blown away that Princess Tilly and her friends managed to gather so many witches on Slumber Island. The prince nods, adding that Tilly didn't just pull witches from Grey Castle, she also invited witches from the other 3 kingdoms. He even thinks she might have been in talks with the Old Witch Association at some point. Wendy mentions that Kara, their former leader, never mentioned anything about Tilly, but the prince points out that if Kara had revealed Tilly's invitation, no witch would have joined Kara's quest for the Holy Mountain. Wendy agrees, saying that this unexpected turn of events has actually worked out in their favor. They're now living with such a down-to-earth prince while enjoying a pretty luxurious life. Lily, always the arrogant one, chimes in, suggesting that bay witches might be better since there are so many witches around, making it easier to walk through town without feeling anxious. As their banter continues and laughter fills the air, and that is when Roland's attention drifts to something a bit awkward. He can't help but notice Wendy's rather prominent pair of hooters. Later that day, the prince sits in his office, mulling over the idea that women with larger breasts often experience sore shoulders, and that's why bras were invented. While it's not a well-verified fact, he figures it's worth trying out to create some undergarments. He thinks about how, as Anna gets older, she might face similar issues, and he'd rather avoid the problem of saggy breasts. He starts designing some bras, marking another innovative leap in this old era. The next day, the balloon soars through the sky once again. This time, it carries not only witches, but also Margaret and a merchant. They're all thrilled and amazed to be flying for the first time. Lightning mentions that she's explored the area and marked it down on the map. Margaret gives her a thumbs up for the work well done. The prince turns to Merchant Marlin, teasing him about whether he's about to crap his pants due to the height. Marlin admits it's really terrifying looking down from so high up and feels like he's on the verge of a panic attack. The prince tells him to calm down, explaining that it's a natural response for someone whose feet are off the ground for the first time, much like how people can get seasick on their first ship voyage. Margaret, meanwhile, is fascinated by the giant balloon, but Marlin remains skeptical. He wonders if witches are controlling it with their powers. But the blondie calmly corrects him, saying that Anna is only managing the flames, and the balloon floats because as long as you keep supplying it with hot air, it will rise naturally. The prince agrees, and adds that hot air rises and cold air sinks, which is why it's called a hot air balloon. They continue chatting about this and other random topics. Eventually, Margaret expresses interest in buying a few hot air balloons from the prince. She mentions that they don't have to be big, just large enough to carry one person. The prince quickly catches on to what Margaret intends to use the balloons for. She confirms that if she attaches the small hot air balloons to their ships, the lookouts will be able to spot pirates from far away, as pirates are a much bigger threat to merchants than storms or tornadoes. The prince flashes a grin and informs her that the price won't be cheap, estimating it will be in the thousands of golden royals. Margaret agrees to pay 1,000 golden royals for one balloon right away. She promises that if the balloons become popular, every merchant in the bay will be eager to buy 1 or 2 for themselves. The other merchant nods in agreement, noting that while he hasn't fully gotten used to the idea yet, it's clear that this could be a crucial exploration tool for the Crescent Moon Merchant Guild. If the prince can make them, he's certain everyone at the bay will want to buy them, even if it means paying a premium. The prince quickly starts calculating the potential profit, realizing that his markup is almost 500% of his estimated product cost. Plus, since he plans to use hydrogen gas to make the balloons float, customers will need to bring them back to Bordertown for refills, creating another source of income. He can almost see himself swimming in golden royals from these balloons. I remember when the entire town's budget was only a few hundred gold royals, and now he's on the brink of making thousands from just one balloon. As you can imagine, he shakes hands and quickly seals the deal. Meanwhile, back at the fjords, Ash is surprised that Roland chose one of the witches known as Sylvie. She wonders if Roland isn't worried about being exposed, given that Sylvie can easily detect lies and see through fake identities. Princess Tilly, however, is also out of the loop and speculates that perhaps Roland doesn't care about hiding his identity and just wants to work with them on honest terms. Ash then brings up another possibility. What if Roland is actually her brother? And if that's the case, he might not be worried about Sylvie's ability at all. Princess Tilly thinks it's a slim chance, though, because she knows her brother well. Roland Wimbledon would never take on the church for the witches. He's always been better at running from challenges or problems, and he even protested when the king sent him to Border Town. Ash then asks if sending their witches to the west is really necessary. Tilly reassures her that it's perfectly fine, but Ash reminds her that Sister Lotus is one of the most important witches at Slumber Island. Without her transformation abilities, it'll be tough to fix any broken mud houses or make significant changes to the island's geography. Sister Honey is also crucial. She can command hawks to catch fish, ensuring everyone enjoys delicious seafood. Ash suggests denying the request and swapping out some less useful witches instead. That's when Princess Tilly's patience wears thin. She stands up dramatically and coldly tells Ash that she's sending the witches to Border Town to form an alliance and won't mess up this opportunity. She reminds her that they're creating a sanctuary for all witches, and she prefers not to label anyone as useful or useless. Ash quickly drops to his knees, apologizing for questioning Princess's intentions. Tilly reminds her friend that Roland picked these witches out of hundreds, including Evelyn and Candle, who are supposedly the least useful. She asks why Roland would choose them if they were truly useless. She's confident that working with these witches will help them understand Roland's choices and how he plans to use their powers. Tilly makes it clear that the witches are not just tools and warns Ash not to say anything like that again. Ash admits her mistake and agrees. Tilly also wants the books they found in the ruins deciphered as quickly as possible. She felt uneasy after her last visit to the ruins and heard that the old association started in Seabreeze Town, with ruins in the eastern forest. She hopes that if the texts in the books match those from both locations, it might reveal a connection. Well, it seems like Tilly is absolutely right. The former leader of the Witch Association, Kara, had that creepy book, which she used in her quest to find the Holy Mountain, but she ended up getting killed by demons. Tilly then apologizes to Ash for scolding her so harshly. While she still doesn't agree with labeling the witches as useless, she acknowledges that if Lotus is away for too long, it will affect the island. Tilly plans to have Lotus return to the bay before winter arrives. In exchange, she will send a few battle witches to Border Town to fend off monsters and months of demons. She is pretty sure that Ash will also go with her in Border Town during the winter. And of course, our tall, scar-faced lady quickly agrees to tag along with Princess Tilly. After all, their relationship seems more like that of a loving couple than just comrades.